You're listening to Staying Wild, the podcast where we ditch burnout and build outrageous success and lives the wild way. I'm Adelaide, the high-performance coach James Bond would secretly hire if pink was his vibe. I've helped over 500 high achievers land promotions, smash personal bests, pivot careers, achieve their full potential, and actually love their lives. Yes, I have. All in under a year. No fluff, just deep mindset work, potent energy, and breakthroughs worth popping champagne over. Now it's time to join me and Wolfie on the wild side with today's episode. I'm kicking off this episode with something a little different, a brand new series on staying wild as part of my slightly wild Renew My Norwegian Visa campaign. I tell all in last week's wild episode, so go ahead and listen next. I was recently inspired by creator and graphic designer Kate Weinberg, who did an Instagram series called Making Designs for Brands I Love Until They Notice Me. They did, she's a genius. And I thought to myself, why wait? Why wait for dream clients to hire me before I start teaching the workshops I know their teams and community need? So welcome to the very first episode of Making Masterclasses for companies I love until they hire me. A quick heads up, my corporate workshops usually run 90 minutes with hands-on exercises. These mini masterclasses are bite-sized, about 20 minutes, packed with one powerful concept delivered podcast style. So sit back, listen, and start shifting your mindset immediately. You might even notice your life changing while I talk. First up, Arc'teryx Academy. They run mountain education events for mountain enthusiasts, can't say that word today, like me, to advance their skills through educational clinics. Their one in Chamonix looks awesome. Today we're focusing on how to think like a pro athlete. Your next breakthrough in your sport won't come from training harder. I'm sharing a crucial insight into how your brain works and one game-changing mindset strategy I use with my athletic clients, so you can show up sharper, go all in, and truly enjoy every moment of your sport or adventure. Here's today's mind blower. The one thing most athletes overlook that sabotages their performance: their own words. Let me explain. Your words shape your thoughts, feelings, experiences, personality, and reality. I've lived this. A decade ago, doctors told me I'd be bedridden with chronic fatigue for the rest of my life. Honestly, life felt like a spectator sport. Sunglasses on gloomy days. Watching my mum bake, leaving the house was exhausting. Fast forward today, I'm living a life wilder than my wildest dreams. So what was the pivotal moment? I decided enough was enough. I took a chance and enrolled in a brain training program. And in 3 days, everything shifted. I had this eye-opening realization that I was unintentionally fueling chronic fatigue by constantly saying things to myself like, oh, I'm so tired. Those 3 words, I'm so tired, were like a broken record playing on repeat. The soundtrack for my life that triggered the very symptoms I wanted to escape. It was a light bulb moment. No wonder I felt stuck. Once I caught onto this stuck pattern, I learned to interrupt those neuropathways. I mastered the art of activating and strengthening the neuropathways, the brain pathways, for the incredible life-altering results I desired. The less I activated and used the old neuropathways for chronic fatigue, the weaker and weaker they became until they disappeared. And I fully recovered. This process is called neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change based on how you use it. Here is another way to picture it. Imagine you hit the gym and only train your right arm. Weeks later, your right arm is a powerhouse, ready to take on the world of jam jars. As you've neglected your left arm, it looks like a noodle in a world of sculpted muscles. It's sad, weak, and if it had a voice, it might quietly lament its jam jar opening inadequacies. But what if you then abandoned your right arm? Weakening happens. And if you were to focus only on your left arm in the gym, once the underdog, it would become strong and resilient. Rise and fall, baby, your brain works in the same way. The more you activate and use a certain neuropathway, the stronger, better, and faster it gets at its job. And eventually, that response becomes unconscious and automatic. So if you always approach a demanding ski line thinking, oh, I can't do this, I'm going to fail, your brain is being wired for this response. It becomes automatic. But if you were to train your brain by deliberately using empowering language like, I can do this, I have the skills, it's going to be fun, your response rewires. Confidence and excitement now become automatic over time. I saw this with a client recently. 2 toxic co-workers were triggering spirals of anxiety and fear. Physically, she felt nausea and fever. Most people spiral. Thoughts create feelings, feelings create thoughts. If this continues over time, your brain goes, hey, they're thinking and feeling this the most. Let me help them out. So over time, your brain starts to rewire itself for these thoughts and feelings to become your new normal. You get stuck in stress, fear, anxiety, survival mode. But my client had invested in coaching with me months ago. So now she has a different mindset. She catches herself when triggered, grounds into her power, and redirects her thoughts, feelings, and energy towards what lights her soul up, like reading, walking with her kids, coffee with her team. Because of her shift into her power over the last 8 months, the whole company has actually shifted. A new executive team, including herself, has taken over, and the board has changed. The second toxic person is finally leaving in 5 days. Not that we're counting. Awareness to your thoughts is the game changer. Catching unhelpful thoughts is step 1. Rewiring is step 2, which I'm going to cover in a lot more detail in just a bit. Now, often when self-talk is being talked about, we are simply told to think positively. Ugh, yuck. I do not teach positive versus negative self-talk. I just don't like those labels, as it brands some emotions and thoughts as negative or bad. Every thought, every emotion is a signpost. Fear, panic, doubt. These aren't bad or negative feelings or thoughts. They're just signals for you to pay attention to, assess what's going on, and act wisely. Maybe to choose a different response. But when thoughts and feelings create stuckness, that is when language, your self-talk, matters most. For example, if you're about to ski drop into a no-fall zone, you might start to feel fear that freezes you on the edge. That's when you want to redirect your thoughts and your feelings away from all the ways it could go wrong to focusing on the key processes that will help you ride it in flow, succeed, and have fun. Just to give you an idea of how powerfully your self-talk narrative impacts your sports performance, let's check out this golfing experiment from a sports psychology research paper. 200 golfers, a mix of seasoned pros and enthusiastic novices, geared up for a golf putting showdown. Before the golf balls started rolling, they were handed a paragraph designed to either amp up their confidence or crank up their anxiety. The confidence instructions contained dazzling phrases like, "You are brilliant. This task is a walk in the park. And you've got all it takes to crush it. I believe in you." On the flip side, the anxiety instructions were a doom and gloom script featuring things like, "This task is really difficult. You are not prepared for this." And "Prepare for an epic fail. It's going to be disastrous." Can you guess the impact this tiny little paragraph had on their performance? Even I found the results jaw-dropping. The golfers, armed with confidence instructions, aced the putting challenge, landing on average a mind-boggling 10 to 15 centimeters closer to the hole. Stress? Almost non-existence. Focus? Sharper than a laser beam. Accuracy? Skyrocketed. And I get it. Golf might not be your cup of tea. It's not mine either. But pause and absorb the sheer power of a single paragraph shaping the destiny of these golfers. Your words literally shape your performance. The words you whisper to yourself before tackling a demanding ski line, a big presentation, tough workout, tricky situations, or just powering through your daily grind is your superhero cape. They can either propel you to victory or weigh you down like a lead balloon. The way you talk to yourself is the secret sauce to unlocking your own superpowers in your sport. But how do we actually achieve this? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to simply think more positively. The first step is awareness. Becoming aware of your thoughts takes practice. Everyone is always looking for a magic answer to becoming aware, but I'm afraid I don't have one. Well, apart from to hire a coach, such as myself. The best way is actually to set the intention at the beginning of your day that you need to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings, making a note of them in your phone as they pop up, and then reflecting back on them when you have time. Brain dumping in a journal is always a good way to do it too. You can see if any patterns are emerging with time. Or maybe it's a specific event that has you suddenly realizing how your self-talk is limiting you. The second step is rewriting. Swap unhelpful phrases for performance and life-enhancing self-talk. For example, "I can't do this" becomes "I can do this." "I'm afraid it will backfire" becomes "I am safe, capable, and ready." "I'm frumpy, overweight, and clumsy" becomes "I am so grateful for my body. It's helped me achieve really amazing things. I love this and this about it, and I'm heading in the right direction." The third step is practice. Anytime a limiting thought pops up, replace it for something performance and life enhancing. Talk yourself into doing things brilliantly, just like those golfers did with the confidence-inducing instructions. It might feel a little weird, hard, clunky, slow, and uncomfortable at first. That's just how rebuilding the brain can sometimes feel. But the more you practice, the easier and easier it becomes. Soon it becomes second nature for you to think, feel, and behave in this new way. It will feel like you've always been this way. This is one of the techniques I used with Alan Hovda, one of Norway's most successful endurance triathletes. Now, this guy isn't your average triathlete. He's won the Zalaris Norseman Extreme Triathlon not once, not twice, but 3 times, and he's raced it more than 10. Imagine diving off a ferry at 5 a.m. into freezing fjord waters. swimming 3.9 kilometers guided by a bonfire, cycling 190 kilometers with rocks and reindeers as your only friends, and then topping it off with a marathon run, climbing over 5,000 meters in total elevation. They don't call part of the run segment Zombie Hill for nothing. Now, let's rewind to 2018 when Alan clinched the Norseman title in an awe-inspiring time. But the biggest surprise, he felt like he failed. Big time. In the last 20 kilometers, he described his killer mindset doing a vanishing act, and in its place appeared a victim's mindset. Imagine having a 21-minute lead and feeling defeated. What happened? I hear you ask. Alan describes his high-performance carrot language suddenly being automatically swapped for low-performance whip language. He started a mental beatdown, calculating how he could easily be defeated. Crossing the finish line, he barely scraped a 2-minute lead over second place. Now, here is the golden nugget. What Alan was saying to himself played a starring role in this performance rollercoaster. As you've been discovering, the words you use are the architects of your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It's the difference between a meh performance and an epic triumph, between a so-and-so day and a victorious life. That's why using performance and life-enhancing language, aka carrot language, is your ticket to becoming the best athlete you can be, the best version of yourself. I had the honor of teaming up with Alan throughout his 2019 season, which turned out to be nothing short of legendary. He broke the Norwegian Ironman race record not once but twice in one season, crushed his race times by up to a whopping 40 minutes, and he emerged first out of the water for the first time in his entire athletic career. Let Alan's journey be your guiding star. It is time to lace up those mental sneakers and race towards your desired future self. Let's wrap up with a quick refresher of how to think in a more life and performance enhancing way. Step 1, awareness. Start tracking your thoughts throughout your day. Step 2, rewriting. Transform unhelpful self-talk into empowering language. Step 3, practice. Swap unhelpful thoughts out immediately. Talk yourself into brilliance. Whether it's sport, adventure, or life, your brain and your body are listening. Now, Jason, a triathlete and business owner, put this into practice. In 1 week, he improved a 2,000-yard swim trial by over a minute. 1 week, all thanks to self-talk. Here's what he had to say. Frickin' awesome! I set my 30-day goal to swim a 2,000-yard swim trial in less than 30 minutes, 30 seconds. Just a week before starting your program, I swam it in 31 minutes and 10 seconds. So I was thinking it would be great to shave 1 second off a lap in 30 days. Today, I crushed that swim in 29 minutes and 42 seconds, shaving more than 2 seconds off a lap. In 1 week, one won't physically improve that much. So it goes to show the power of the mind. I really jacked myself up before with performance-enhancing self-talk that I will break that time. And then during tough moments of the swim, I stayed focused on the process of each stroke. Thanks for the guidance and motivation to get my mindset to where it needs to be. I cannot wait to hear what breakthroughs you experience after this masterclass as well. Drop your questions or aha moments in the comments, or use the link in the show notes to submit your dilemmas. If you would like to work with me as well, honestly, now has never been a better time as part of my campaign to renew my Norwegian visa. So all the links for one-to-one coaching are in the show notes below as well. along with team performance coaching for athletes and corporates. Please share this episode on your socials, tag Arc'teryx if you'd like to attend the full workshop. Either way, please share, as it really helps my podcast ratings. Hit subscribe to follow along as I create mini masterclasses for companies I love next. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Natalia Komis. She's a multidimensional healer, business mentor, and the kind of woman who embodies what it means to live a truly wild, authentic life. We've worked together for years. She was a key guide in my full recovery from PMDD, though having her on Staying Wild was an absolute no-brainer. Natalia's story is one of resilience and transformation. After battling chronic illness, she found her way back to health by deeply reconnecting with her body intuition, the wisdom of nature, and the world beyond which we can see, the spiritual world, universe, source, Gaia, whichever resonates with you. We discussed the intersection of mind, body, and soul healing, and how self-awareness paired with a little bit of wild courage can lead to profound change. If you've been feeling burnt out, disconnected, or craving something more, you are going to love this conversation with Natalia. Let's dive in. Hello, Natalia. I am super psyched to have you on the Staying Wild podcast.
I'm very excited to be here. As always, our conversations are always enlightening, so this is going to be exciting.
Totally agree. And we're just going to dive straight into like the big, juicy questions. So
Obviously.
we have been working together, yeah. We've been working together for quite a long time now, actually, a couple of years probably, and then intensely, and then I think maybe a few years before that even.
Yeah.
I came to you because I knew you'd recovered fully from a chronic illness. I knew you understood where I was coming from when I wanted to recover from PMDD. Could you tell us about your journey?
Yes. So it was very interesting for me, and this is, where do I begin? Uh, we're probably going to touch upon this, I think, in different ways today, but the beginning of my chronic fatigue was actually somewhere in the middle of me doing huge amounts of healing on myself. So what actually happened was it was a little bit like Pandora's box. You open Pandora's box and then suddenly everything comes out. And it's just one thing after another. And you think you've done a big piece of healing and then bam, something hits you and there's another piece over there. You know how that feels. And what happened with the chronic fatigue stuff was I just opened and kind of released a huge amount of stuff around my feminine energy, actually, which I think we will talk about more today, and understood myself on a deeper level and was doing a lot of healing where I was tapping into my spiritual abilities as a healer and tapping into loads of different elements. And I was actually in Spain at the time. I just moved to Spain a year before. And I was living in a house with a load of toxic mold, which I didn't realize. I didn't realize how bad that was for me at the time. I then maybe got COVID, maybe didn't get COVID, who knows? It was before a lot of the stuff had happened with COVID, right? Before the lockdowns even. I had a lot of drama with my current landlord at the time. The police had to get involved. It was really a crazy time. And suddenly I got really ill. And in that space, there was a lot being unlocked for me. And I remember being ridiculously ill, like severe flu, temperature, I could barely do anything. And yet I was feeling the sexiest I'd ever felt in my life. It was weird. And I remember being just obsessed with like pleasure and exploration and really, really, I mean, I was doing like 3-4 hours of deep meditation every day, like full 3-4 hours, really going deep into this and connecting with like Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary. And that was the beginning of what is now the temple journey. But in doing that healing on myself and going through that process, unbeknownst to me that was going to become a program that was one of my signature programs, of course. Like I just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper and not realizing how unhappy I was in my relationship and how there was a lot of different things that actually I'd kind of dismissed, like a lot of childhood trauma, not being my full self, not having clear, healthy boundaries, like so many different things that I just thought weren't an issue, actually. Like I was thinking, I'm fully, like I'm so intuitive and like I've done so much work on myself and I like personal development has been in my life for like 20 years. So in a kind of egotistical way, I thought I was above that in some like capacity. Like I think when you're in that system and that business and that environment, especially from a professional standpoint, sometimes you forget actually how much you still need to do in that
Mm.
space. And that was a big slap in the face for me in a good way. Because what happened was I moved back to the UK with my then partner, and we moved in with his family, which was just horrific. And I just got severe chronic fatigue, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And the more I didn't take action on leaving the relationship, the more I fell back into masculine patterns, the more I was around even also my family. There were so many aspects that just was pushing me into you need to do something about this now, or your body is not going to survive, basically. I mean, you know, I was being labeled with having chronic fatigue, with POTS, with fibromyalgia, with long COVID, like every label was
Mm.
slapped on me. And I just knew this was not me. I knew that that was not something I was willing to accept. I remember going to the doctor and being so angry about A, how much of a sexist twat he was, quite frankly. And I was like, it was a cry for help. I was like, I just need some help to get out of this like weird thing that I'm in. This isn't something I'm willing to live with. And it was just like he gave me some weird analogy. He actually implied that I was some kind of conspiracy theorist and that me thinking that I could just magically get better was just a delusion, basically. I was just like, that's it. I'm never going back to the doctor. That's not happening anymore. I booked an acupuncture session and I was like, okay, every single week going to acupuncture, I knew my nervous system was out of line. I knew that was completely shot and I needed to support my nervous system before I could do anything. I broke up with my then partner. I actually got a therapist, but a very specific therapist focused in MBR, mind body reconnect training, which I'm now trained in. That's how powerful I thought that was. And I came back to myself, my needs, my boundaries, and my feminine energy. And
Mm.
throughout that whole time, the one thing that actually kept me going was, well, two things. One was my work and how much I loved it and how much it fueled me. And it was the one thing that I could keep coming back to and actually have the energy for. And B was basically being in solitary confinement apart from my animals, like especially Callie, my dog, and being out in nature with her every single day. From that place, I was able to retrieve myself. I was able to keep coming back to pleasure in multiple different ways, including through my body, and leave the UK, come back to Spain, and focus on enjoying my life. Before I came back to Spain, I remember realizing, wow, I have no symptoms. I have nothing anymore. And the biggest lesson from all of that for me was your body is your signal. It's not a negative when something happens in your body. It is actually the biggest positive thing you can experience because it is telling you where you need to go next, what you need to do next, and what you need to change in order to live life in a way that meets your needs, that brings you joy, that creates happiness and peace. And I think that's the peace. The peace for peace. It's that safety that we all need, especially women, in our bodies and in our environment to be our fully expressed selves. And when you're in the survival mode, which is what chronic fatigue is, you're not able to be that. You're simply just doing what you can to be as safe as possible because you're feeling hunted, right? If we go back to tribal times, you're being hunted, you're not safe, there's danger around you. You're not going to just like casually sit down by the river and meditate, are you, in that situation? You're going to freaking run. So it's coming back to basics in that sense.
Just hearing you talk, I actually didn't realize how parallel our journeys have been.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh yes, experience that. Yes, yes, yes. Um,
hmm
just yeah, that's actually really, I didn't realize it had been quite almost, yeah, the pattern is bizarre. But I
This
really
is
like,
how I know like what is going on for
yeah,
you, right?
exactly. Well, that's why I started to work with you really intensely because I was like, Natalia, I think I'm cursed. I was just desperate to change. But I think if I was to look back, I reckon I was already having those signals you were talking about. But again, being in like extreme survival mode, you just don't see them, didn't have
Mhm.
boundaries, all that kind of stuff.
And we're brought up with that as well, so it seems normal,
Exactly.
of course,
Yeah.
especially for women.
Especially for women, like you have to shrink yourself and ignore your boundaries, which can be just sharing your vulnerabilities and feelings to get clarity around a situation.
Yeah, and you take on everything. The
Mm.
level of people pleasing is ridiculous. I mean, Gabor Mate talks about this and chronic fatigue and chronic ailments. The majority of people that suffer from them, it's women. In fact, it's 80% women.
Yeah. I was wondering at the beginning that, having this chronic stuff wasn't something you were willing to live with.
Mm,
I think that applies to lots of different things, whether it's relationships and feeling pressured to settle,
yeah.
or whether it's a career or something, and you kind of feel like I should put up with this or I should accept it for the way it is. And it was when you said that, I had exactly the same knowing that when I had the chronic fatigue, when I had the PMDD, being gaslit, being told I was crazy, it was
Mm,
impossible, blah, 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 blah. I was like, but I'm not willing to live with this. Some people, maybe we don't hear that knowing or realize
mm,
that knowing. How do you start to listen to your intuition to
mm.
start to hear those signals, whether it's mind, body, or soul?
Great question. And I think it comes down to two things, actually. I think one of, because I've seen a lot of people, and I've worked with quite a lot of people now with similar issues, but also, as you say, you can see this in different areas of your life. And one of the biggest things that actually differentiates people who can take that step forward and who are not only saying, I'm not willing to put up with this, but are be able to take action in some way by getting help or by researching or by actively saying no. Is first of all, it's personality and it's the ability to take risks and move past the fear of I'm going to be different or they're going to think something about me or I might put myself in an unsafe situation by saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I can't not say it because what's the alternative? And I'm not
Mm,
willing to put up with that alternative because I want something more. I want to live. And there's a free will in that, like with everything, and there's a choice and there's a responsibility. And it's people who are willing to take responsibility and take risk with that who
mm,
can do that. So that's the one big step and what differentiates people hugely. Because you can be listening to your intuition and you can be feeling like this tightness in your body, this tightness in your chest, or your stomach going. Like for a lot of people, it's your gut, right? It's the gut heart brain connection and it will be your gut and you'll be feeling really anxious or you'll need to go to the toilet or you'll even maybe sometimes your throat begins to hurt because you know there's something you want to say and you're not saying it or it's scary to say that. There's this voice inside of you that's saying, but is that really true? Am I going to accept this? I feel actually that I don't want to do that. And so many people get that, like you do get it. But then that piece where can you take action on that knowing is missing for many reasons, and this isn't a blame game at all. It's about maybe you've never been taught how to take action on that. Maybe you've never been safe enough to take action on that. And so it is extra scary, it's extra difficult. And maybe there's never been evidence or there's never been a role model for you to look at where someone stood up for themselves in some way or stood up for you in some way. I think that's a really big piece. And then when we come down to listening to yourself, it can be as simple as listening to your body. That is one of your biggest signals. Like I was saying, your body is telling you. Like I had a situation recently to give you a really clear example of this. I went and did a journey, a ceremony meditation for a friend of mine. And I really resisted because I didn't really want to say yes because I already had loads on my plate. Didn't particularly want to do it. And there was a lot of other things going on as well that made me feel really emotional. And so I was actually feeling quite vulnerable. And instead of saying, you know what, sorry, but I'm just not going to do it, which probably I should have done for lots of different reasons, including the fact that I was just drained. I thought, oh no, it'll be good for me. And, it'll be nice to do something in person again because I haven't done something for ages since having Bodhi, my son. I don't want to, say no last minute because it was on the day and I felt bad about it, people pleasing tendencies coming in, like all of these things. And what happened was I was ill all week coming up to that because my body was trying to give me an excuse almost, right? I was trying to give myself an excuse to get out of it. And then I still push, like, no, I'm getting better. It's fine. I'm going to do it. On the day, I remember driving there and I was almost having a panic attack. And I still didn't realize until I got there and I was like shaking almost to the point where I was almost crying because I'd got myself so worked up and pushed myself. I wasn't even mentally thinking about it. By this point, I'd accepted I was doing it. I was really happy that I was doing it. I was like, this is going to be great. But internally, my subconscious was shouting at me, like, why are you pushing yourself so hard? It wasn't even about the event itself or the person or any of these other extra things, of which there were many. It was, why are you pushing yourself when you're already drained? And I didn't need to tune in or meditate or do any of these other things to know that my body was telling me something. So that's the first thing. Like you don't have to be super spiritual to actually know yourself. And then if you do want to be a bit more spiritual and you take a moment. So in that situation, what did I do? I used the first half of the ceremony to meditate and to get back to myself and to ground and to come into my heart and talk to my inner self and talk to my inner child and notice what was it that actually I was needing. And I was just really needing love. I was really needing a hug. I was needing support. And I was needing to just calm my nervous system. So I did all those things in preparation for me to be able to hold space. Did the journey, great, blah, 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 blah. Wasn't the best that I've ever done for those reasons, because I wasn't the best in myself at the time, but it was still great. I was glad that I'd done it. And then realized when I got home, okay, we need to address the overwhelm. And that's where you take action, you take responsibility, and you deal with it on a practical level. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It definitely does. I think that's been my biggest lesson from working with you,
Mm,
that every signal in the body does have a mind, heart, soul
mm,
connection. And I think because we're brought up in a society which tells you if there is a problem in your body, then there is a physical thing you need to take or do to fix
mm.
it.
Yeah,
But rarely are you told, okay, tune in, and what is the connection piece to that on an emotional or soul level? And if you
yeah,
do
on a
take that
metaphysical
route,
level.
exactly. And then if you do take that route, then that can be triggering for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think this is really important actually, because I do believe that you need the physical and the emotional to go hand in
Mhm.
hand, right? And um, and that's why actually when I was working on myself coming out of chronic fatigue and all of that was why I was doing the acupuncture, because I knew I needed physical release as
Mm,
well. And it's why some people actually need exercise. They will talk about it as if it's a form of therapy even, it's a
mm,
form of like I can't live without going for a run. I can't live without going to the gym in some way. And because that is their body's physical release of all of this stuff that's going on, of the processing. And so we can't do one without the other. We do need to remember that it is all interconnected. Just like our cells hold energy, they hold signals, and our physical body holds signals, our energetic body holds signals and holds energy, just as our physical does. The way I think about it is if I see a visual, let's say there's three main bodies, right? There's three main visuals of our body, and they're all combined. There's like three layers that overlap each other. If one of those layers is blacked out or is full of stuff, it becomes really heavy and dense and it's pushing on the other two. And so the other two get squished. Just that visual alone, you're thinking, well, hold on a minute. How is this? Like, this isn't going to work, is it? Because then what about these other two over here? Like, they can't be their true selves. They can't stand upright, or I can't see them as clearly because now this is obstructing the view.
what are those three layers again?
For me, it's the main physical body,
Yeah.
the energetic body, and the etheric body.
And
And
etheric
the
is spiritual, the
Yes,
metaphysical. Yeah.
exactly. So like we're talking like mind, body, mind, soul, for example,
Yeah.
right? And I think that rightly, as you said, like we forget that when we're focusing on the physical, there's other layers. Just as when I was working on my stuff, I forgot to actually deal with my childhood trauma. I
Mm.
forgot to deal with the stuff that was going on alongside all of these other things that I was doing, my relationship that was failing. We tend to avoid looking at those more emotional aspects because they are harder, because they're less obvious, and it's not as simple as taking a pill. There's not a clear journey either. I mean, look how like it has taken us some time to get to the bottom of some of your stuff, right? As
Yeah.
well.
That
And
was, as you said, it's
there's
Pandora's box.
layers.
Yeah. It's
Exactly.
Pandora's box. Yeah. And I think like when you, as you said, like when you feel you've healed one, it's like you've just gone a bit deeper and there's something else popping up.
Exactly. And sometimes you need to do that, A, because you're not ready to go full whack. You're not
Mm.
ready to go to the end of the line because that would be too much.
Yeah, 100%.
You need to do it in steps. And I think that so many people now want the
Yeah.
fast track to success, the fast track to healing, especially if you're a high achiever, especially if you're the type of person that we were talking about who's like, no, I'm not accepting this. I want XYZ, and you want it now.
Yes. No, I can't relate to that one at all.
But the lesson for those people, right? For people like us and everyone else, is this is not an overnight situation.
No, it's
And
definitely
that
a
and
thing.
that is your lesson. Your lesson is you have to take this road in a way that's going to take you through these different layers, through these different dimensions, because it's exactly that is going to help you get to the finish line and get past it.
And I really liked when you were talking about your elemental healing journey,
Mm.
how that was really connected to nature.
Mm.
You tell us more about that before we started recording. I
Mm.
think a lot of us are out in nature. I'm skiing a lot. My listeners are hiking, adventuring, and we can often think that we are connected to nature because we're out in it. But actually, what you've taught me is the way we connect to nature is quite different. I feel like when we're out in it, you're out, but you're being a bit passive towards it. Whereas when you're connected to it, it's very much more of an
Mm.
active relationship.
Definitely. I think I went through this weird stage where when I was a child, I was super connected. I remember like that was basically my whole world, being out in nature, talking with the trees and talking with the animals. I remember I had this one tree where I would just go and like hold it and connect with it and talk to it. And it was literally like it was my friend, And somewhere along the line, I became And actually, it's quite interesting thinking about it now. I actually stepped more and more into my masculine, unhealthy masculine. I was pushing really hard. I was in the city and like my main drive. It's funny because I was talking to Nick, my partner, about this recently, how I remember hitting 30 and being really gutted that I was not on the 30 under 30 Forbes list or by then, for example, or like there was just all these different elements. I was just like, what the frick? Like that was what I was striving for, you know? And
Mm.
I kind of forgot all of the stuff that I was super connected with because I wasn't being present enough, not just in nature, but I wasn't being present in myself. The irony was that I was running a business, I'm Adventures, which was all about taking women and girls hiking through nature and doing personal development stuff along the way, you know, and coaching them whilst we were walking and doing creative activities and like all of these things. So we were even working with nature as we're walking, you know, doing 35K a day in nature. And like so many of the exercises were what do you see? What do you feel? Like all of these things, trying to get them to see nature. But there's a difference between seeing and
Mm.
really feeling and being fully in it. And it was when I, as you rightly say, when I started doing the elemental healing, training in that, and then using it for myself and my clients, that I fully came back to that and understood it on a deeper level. And working with the elements and the elementals within each element. So, for example, if we think about fire, you're looking at like fire dragons and the phoenix and salamanders and like all of these elementals who are connected to that. And even though we can't see them, they're there and we can experience their energy within nature. And when I was able to start embodying that more and more, I was able to see it through my third eye, my mind's eye, and truly like meditate in nature in a way where I was seeing the signs and the gifts and feeling safe and loved in nature. And then I was able to start talking with trees again. And when I say talking with trees, it took me some time to actually be able to talk to trees. I was connecting to their energy and I could feel the energy moving through me. And then
Mm.
when I would be meditating at home, I could go back to that space and reconnect with that tree and feel that energy. And we would just be sharing energy. I could feel that that energy was different to my own energy. And when I would go and connect with Gaia and with the center of the earth, it was like, and it still is, it's this peace for me. It's a safe
Mm.
environment, you know, it's a way of me being like, okay, like this is where my human element belongs. I know there are several parts of me that are because this earth exists. There are five elements. There are five elements within each of us. We are the five elements. And so the more that you can understand that, the more that you realize all is one, you know, and like then you go into faith and religion and all these other things where there's different variations of that. It becomes something around faith and it becomes something about feeling whole. And then you realize when I'm in nature is when I can truly let go and feel whole. You can actually feel all of the different layers, the different energies, the flower that has multiple things going on around it and in it. See the gifts that they want to give you and experience those gifts in different ways and gift something back, even if you want to. And there's this huge relationship that can happen between us and nature that we did know once upon a time. There were so many priestesses and wise women and men and nature folk who understood this relationship that we have with nature. And there's so many myths and legends about the Fae that weirdly, let's be honest, suddenly this is becoming kind of mainstream. You know, there's so many books about the Fae and films and programs. And just like not long ago, there was many programs and films about the elements, even children's programs. It's not a coincidence when these things are happening, when we're seeing, you know, unicorns and dragons and all of these like things that have always been part of our world, but in the last couple of 100 years have kind of been mocked or not seen as real, but they've always been there. And they're all resurfacing now. And I believe it's happening for us to start tapping into it all again. Something that actually I didn't mention was this is kind of like relevant and irrelevant at the same time. I used to have these dreams as a child, like repetitive dreams. We're talking from when I was very early on, like, I don't know, 3 years old. I would go through these gates with two beings guarding them, and I would end up in this palace. And there was loads of other stuff going on. But in this palace, I always had a bedroom, but this bedroom was freaking awesome. Massive windows into this gorgeous garden. And there would be unicorns and dragons that would come and say hello. But I was never a unicorn and dragon person until I did the elemental healing. I was not in any way interested in the elementals, in fairies. I did always like dragons, but not fanatically, because I am also a dragon in the Chinese zodiac. So there was a connection there. But unicorns, I was a bit like, okay, that's a bit of a fluffy pink thing. I was never a pink girl. It wasn't until I started doing the elemental healing I remembered those dreams again. I'd forgotten about that element with the unicorns and the dragons and the this and the that. It's like, how weird. That was always there. So when I started to explore the elements again, that really was a big thing for me. Like, I had such a soul connection with unicorns and such a deep understanding of the energy of the dragons. And it was when I tapped into the fire energy with dragons, especially, that I realized I'd lost my spark, I'd lost my fiery energy, and I'd lost this dragon energy that I hold. And this is how that kind of thing can then come into your life on a practical level. Because when I started tapping into that, I realized something's been putting my fire out, essentially. One of those key things was the contraceptive pill. And I just
Mm.
had this knowing that I should come off it. It wasn't because I wanted kids, because I certainly at that time did not want children. I even had a podcast. I was interviewed on multiple magazines about how I didn't want children. I was even approached to do a TV show about it. That's how much I was like, this is not happening. And then I came off the pill. Very quickly, I realized I was living a numb version of myself. That my fire was out. And suddenly I had fire again. The more I tapped into that, the more I was able to experience my true self again, my feminine energy, my feminine fire, because a lot of people associate feminine energy with water. Rightly so to a degree, but there's also feminine fire, you know? We are the creators. Like, we are the manifestors, the ones who bring life in so many different ways to this world in order for the masculine energy to take action on that. But like, we transform things, and that's fire energy. And the pill I felt had taken that away from me big time. And that was like the start of me really fully opening up again and exploring things, and then going into a lot of other different healings and then all the chronic fatigue stuff and all of that. But that was that first step, because I felt like it was actually limiting my expansion. It was limiting my connection with myself and with the universe, the world around me. Of course, it is to a degree, like any chemical that you're putting into your body, especially one that's stopping your body working in the way that it's naturally meant to be working. Like, there's a reason we have periods as women. You know,
Mm.
one of the big ones is every month you get to, like, now I see it as a gift, because every month we get to release all this tension, all this trauma, all this stuff that we've been holding on to, or that's been coming up for us. Like, we have the most natural, amazing way to let go of stuff. And I was on the contraceptive for the progesterone only one, so I didn't have any periods for years and years. So I was like holding on to everything, being some stagnant, like numb being, you know?
I'd love to talk about this for ages. I could talk to you forever, especially about this. I think I was quite
Mhm.
lucky because I was on the pill when I must have been 18. I think it was partly what triggered the severe chronic fatigue syndrome. And the malaria reacted really badly with the pill. So I was on my period for like 6 months.
Wow.
So then I never took it again. We talk about this knowing. I think because what I went through the chronic fatigue syndrome, I was like, I'm not putting anything in my body that is not natural.
Yeah, that
Um,
can trigger this, because why would
yeah.
you? Why would you risk it even?
Yeah, exactly. And then now having been through all the PMDD stuff and all the hormone stuff, I don't think now there is anything that could make me put something that's unnatural into
Mm.
my body because I am so healthy now, and there is nothing that I would do to risk that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and this isn't about completely poo-pooing the medicine system, right? And the medical system, sorry. But it is about realizing how much we can do ourselves and how
Yeah.
much, even like the actual medicine, like look at nature for what
Yeah.
they're creating. I think we forget that, we forget that there are alternative ways of doing things and that we
Mm.
have so much power in ourselves to heal. Louise Hay talks about this
Yeah.
massively,
Love her.
how everything has a metaphysical
Mm.
connection, just like we were talking about at the beginning. Like I was actually talking to a client today about that connection between the emotions and inflammation,
Yeah.
histamine, how any weakness in your body can then be affected and triggered if
Mm.
you haven't dealt with your emotions. Because when you haven't dealt with your emotions, it creates inflammation in your body. It can then create high histamine. And then there's like a whole myriad of things that could be going on. And no one talks about that. The medical system seems to just, oh, let's just forget about the origin of this
Mm.
and we'll just put a plaster on the current problem.
Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, I also did acupuncture every
Mm.
week. She was a lifeline. And then I was working with you, doing all the emotional, metaphysical stuff. And then I was also taking the supplements. And I was literally, if I stopped taking the antihistamines, the symptoms would just be unbearable. I do believe, as you said, it's the physical and the emotional soul stuff goes hand in hand.
To a degree, you need your nervous system to be
Yeah.
at a certain level in order to then be able to tackle anything. And it's why, like, so much of the soul healing that we do, you have to feel
Mm.
like you're in a safe place. Just like in therapy, you have to feel
Yeah.
safe with the person that you're doing the therapy with. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You're just going to go straight back into survival mode, anxiety,
Yeah.
panic attack.
And that was a
And
big piece for us, actually, that
it
safety
was.
piece. Yeah.
Yeah, because so often that's what's going on. You haven't felt safe for most of your life, or something has
Mm.
triggered you to feel unsafe. Maybe the people around you are making you feel unsafe. Maybe your environment is not very safe. Maybe it is literally that you've put something in your body that is triggering that survival
Mm.
mechanism and your body is putting out all this histamine, right? So you need to
Mm.
lower the histamine in order to then do the soul healing as well. You have to look at the big picture here. You have to be doing it from a place of safety.
I think that really leads us nicely, unfortunately, to wrapping up our conversation. What would be your best piece of advice for someone who wants to live a wild life?
It's knowing what that is for you, really like feeling what does wild feel like for me? Like, who am I in my wildest self? And then it's always listening to that wild voice inside of you, not being afraid to take that risk or to listen to that voice. If we kind of do a 360 and come back to the beginning, it's the risk takers. It's the ones who are not willing to settle for less than what their heart is telling them.
Mm.
It's being able to listen and go for it, take action on it.
How do you then start to know or even start to allow yourself to dream or visualize who am I? What is the life I want to live?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to two things, right? It's one, remove the noise.
Hmm.
So stop listening to the people, stop listening to what's on Instagram and looking at your feed. Ignore everybody else's advice because it's not yours. That's the first thing. And then it's get curious. If you don't know, it's because you haven't followed your curiosity into something yet. And you don't need to know the how or the end or the full picture because there isn't one. There isn't an end in this situation, in this wild
Yep.
ride, right? It's not about the ending. There's that classic thing, oh, it's about the journey, not the end, blah, blah, blah. It's always about if you don't know, what's making you feel curious? Where can you just explore something and see what happens and not feel like it has to succeed or it has to do something or it has to achieve something? It's what is this? Oh, that's interesting. Let me just see what's underneath here. Oh, that's a nice shiny rock. Let me just check what's under that rock. Oh, there's a hole. Oh, what's in the hole?
Mm.
Just keep going. Don't be afraid
And
to keep going. We don't have to stay stuck somewhere. Because you've picked one particular career doesn't mean that's your career for life.
that theme you just mentioned, follow that curiosity, follow that joy, that has been the key thing. I've interviewed 10, 15 people now. That's the
Mm,
one thing everyone is doing, is following their curiosity, following their joy, ignoring the noise, distractions, and shoulds.
exactly. It's not about what is everybody else doing, what should I be doing when I reach X. Like, oh, I've got my personal best. I've climbed Mount Everest. What's the next mountain everybody does? Who gives? Who gives? Like, is that what you want to live your life doing? Like, what about the pioneers? Did they follow whatever? Of course they bloody don't. Otherwise, they're not a pioneer. What's that one thing that you want to be doing next? And you don't know why. Like, you don't need to know why. You know what? I'm going to go on this mountain just because everyone's skiing over here. I'm going to actually, like, there's something about this one. I'm going to go down there. Maybe you've been led there by God, soul, whatever source, anything, the universe, because you're going to go and rescue a bird that has fallen out of a tree.
Mm,
And your kindness and your energy was needed to be there in that exact moment. And by rescuing that bird that's fallen out of a tree, you've then gone, oh, let me take this bird to a sanctuary. At that place, you've met somebody who's suddenly you become best friends. Through that
mm.
friendship, something else happens. Like you cannot predict these things. But if you don't follow that curiosity, you lose so much of the magic of this world and you become stagnant and numb. What was I talking about when I was on the pill? You become numb and like everybody else. And who wants to be like everybody else? That's not a wild life.
I love that. That's the perfect ending to
Mhm.
this podcast and to this conversation. So thank you so much and sharing your wisdom. Honestly, I could talk to you forever. And there are so many topics we didn't even touch upon that I would have loved to. So maybe we get you on for another episode. Thank you so much. And where can people follow you? And if you have something to promote, like the temple journey, then please share it with my audience.
For sure. Thank you so much, by the way, for this conversation. I love all of our conversations. So always happy to come back on if you would like. And you can find me at nataliakomis.com. My Instagram is Natalia Komis also. You can go and check out the Temple Journey if you're a woman and you want to experience coming back into your true feminine energy and your true feminine power and what that can do for you on healing so many layers, not just physical, not just on the soul level, but even like your relationships and your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your partner or partner to be, so many different aspects. It's literally what I did for myself, basically, and then created the program and channeled this program into being. And a lot of people have done no spiritual things when they join it, and other people have, and it just takes you to the next level. Most people who do it do not know why they've done it. If we're talking about that curiosity piece, it is honestly, it pulls you to it. So if for whatever reason you're still listening, just go and check it out and see if it's something you want to do. You can do it at your own pace and still get all of the goodness that's there.
And
And
I've
yeah.
done it. I did it live and it was amazing. So I do
Mm.
recommend. And I'm going to put all the links into the show notes so you can go follow Natalia and check out all her stuff.
Thank you. One more thing I will say is if you do go to my Instagram, I have a free voice activation, throat chakra activation with the dolphins
Oh, I've
that you
done that
can
one.
go
It's
and check
also very
out.
nice.
Yes, so that's a
I
really
recommend
nice
that
one
one
if
to
you want
you.
to connect with the water element, with the dolphins, and to get more powerful in using your voice.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put all those links in the show notes. I recommend everything. I've done it all. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
That's it for today, wild ones. Please rate, review, subscribe. This really helps me with the podcast algorithms to reach more wild-hearted souls. Remember, we have our wild bonus episode out on Thursday on YouTube and Spotify. Until next time, darling wild ones, try not to do anything I wouldn't do, which quite frankly leaves you with plenty of options. Stay smart,
stay savage, and above all, stay wild.
I'll see you above the tree lines very soon.